Now, in programming, we have this term spaghetti code. Okay, so what is a spaghetti code? So this is when our code grows, okay, and it is then difficult to scale up or maintain that said code. Okay, so this will happen when our project grows. Okay, so naturally our code will also grow, and then if ever that we are going to have it in a single file, so it would be a problem for us to scale up or maintain our code. Okay, so there goes now our what we call as our modules here in our in JavaScript. Okay, so that is what we are going to learn today, so that instead that we are going to deal with spaghetti code, okay, so it would with modules we are going to have a cleaner code. So therefore, if ever it is cleaner codes, it would be much easier for us to maintain, to scale up, and organize our codes. Okay, so our topic is about JavaScript modules. Okay, so for our objectives, understand the concept and purpose of JS modules. Then, so we are going to learn how to import and export functions. Okay, so this number two is actually the heart of our lesson, or the main topic. So we have here how to import and export functions, objects, and classes. Okay, and with JavaScript module, so uh, it is going to help us organize our code for scalability and maintainability. So what are JS modules? Okay, they are also referred as AES, okay, or ECMAScript modules, standardized format for organizing and encapsulating code into, take note, separate files. Okay, so again, as I've said before, a while ago, instead that we are going to have all of our algorithms in a single file, is we are going to have them separated so that we are going to have a cleaner code. Okay? So they follow strict lexical scoping, take note of the term scoping, and support import-export syntax that enables controlled sharing of code between files. Okay, so we could now share code from different files. Maybe from other file one would be uh, exposing some functions, objects, or classes. Then they are going to be used by other files. Okay, we're going to have the examples later on. Now, in layman's term, these are a way to break our code into smaller, reusable chunks. Okay, so take note, smaller, reusable, like organizing class clue set into a neat labeled boxes. Okay, so again, the main purpose of module is actually uh, to have a cleaner code. Okay, so what is a modular file system? This lets us split code into separate files. So again, each file, when I say file, that's a module, contains specific logic, like a calculator module, UI module, or a data handler. So what are we going to do later on is that when we are going to separate the files, okay, so we are going to separate them according to their specific logic. For example, all mathematics, let us say all mathematics functions uh, will be put together in a math module, let us say that, or all UI modules or UI functions will be in a UI module, and so on. Okay? And each module is a self-contained file with its own top-level scope, and variables declared in one module are not accessible globally, preventing name collisions. So take note here, it has top-level scope, meaning the modules are actually within its own. Okay, so all of the variables are used within that module and they are not accessible globally. So how are we going to access them? Okay, so because take note that modules are to be used for sharing either function, classes, and objects. Okay, so we have the import and export mechanism. So export keyword exposes functions, objects, and variables. So meaning all of those exported functions could be used or could be shared to other files. Okay, so export them from a module and import them. Okay, uh, import exposes those exports in other modules. So we have here an example. We have a module here, export function add. Okay, and it is going to return A and B. Okay, and the file that is going to use this module here is main.js. Okay, so that we could use this function add, so we must have to import, take note, import the said function from the file name. This is the file name here, mathtools.js. So we have here, and it exported the function add. So here in main.js, we are going to import it. Okay? And we are going to import, how are we going to import that? By using now our curly brace here. Import then add or whatever will be the name of the exported function. And actually, we could export more than one function from these modules. Okay, so we are going to have the example later on. Now, we have also this what we call as export default. Okay, it is a syntax used in modules to export a single primary value. Okay, so if ever our module has one main thing to share, we are going to set it as the export default. Okay, and we have here the key characteristics. So single default export per module. So therefore, there must be only one default export in a file. But still, we could have other exports with, so aside from the default, it is possible that we could also share other multiple name exports. Okay? Then flexible import naming. When importing a default export, you can name it with anything. It is not the word anything, but just anything. Anything that you want. Okay? So how are we going to have our export default? So here, there's two ways. Okay? So export default, the old one, by using now the keyword function. Okay? Then the name of our function. Okay? Or the other one, by using now our arrow function, so const, the name of the function, so it is a normal function. Then below, you are going to specify export default, then the name of the function. Okay, so either of the two syntax here could be possible. Now, it said also that uh, we could export single default export, but with possible with multiple name exports. So we have the syntax here. So we have here now our default function here is we have the create students table function. Okay, and we have defined it here. But then if ever from the same file, from the same module, for example, students table, and I want to export another function, so we have here export this one here, this syntax, okay? So export const another function, then the logic. So there are two functions here that have been exported. So the default one and another function. And actually, we could still have, there is actually no limit for the number of functions here. Okay, so, but then best practices would be you are going to group those functions that have uh, the same functions. Okay, so all of them must be incorporated within a single module. Okay, so how are we going to import the default function? Save it here. So import then the default, take note here. This is now the default function. So less the curly brace. Okay, so if ever that we are going to import a default function, so we are not going to have the curly brace. Okay, and it is said that flexible import naming when importing a default export, so you can name it anything. When you say anything, literal anything. By the way, it is not always the word anything. But for example, import whatever name would be, okay? Then this one here then would refer to the default export, which is in our case, in our example, we have the create students table. And within your code, you are going to use then the word anything or whatever. Okay, so again, we're going to have the example later on. Okay, so how about if ever I'm going to import, for example, this one here, a default export and the usual or the regular export. Okay, so we have here, uh, here. So import anything, meaning this is now our default export, and the regular export would be enclosed within uh, curly braces. Okay, then still same usage within our file. And the last, so how are we going to tell JavaScript that we are going to use a module? Save it here. Script, then we have our type. Type must be equal to module within our HTML file. Okay, so therefore, main.js is our type module, so therefore, it could now use the import and the export commands. Okay, so we are now going to have in our previous example, so we have here. Okay, so this is now the index. Okay, so first it is said that we are going to specify that the type must be equal to module. Okay, then the source is equal to, what was that? Index.js. Okay, so we have index.js. Okay, so we have now specified that we are going to have uh, our index.js as a module. Okay, so a bit here. So first, okay, I'm going to have a very simple module first. So I'm going to create here, let us say I'm going to have it utilities.js. Okay, so this is our module. So first, I'm going to declare uh, later on we're going to have the default. Okay, so a bit here. So I'm going to export uh, wait. Okay. So I'm going to create here. I have here, by the way, an H1. Okay, so I'm going to create here. I'm going to put here a text. Okay, as for our topic this for this video. Okay, through a module. Okay, a very simple one. Okay, so const. Let us say. Okay, I'm just going to put here display header. Okay. But then, okay, I'm just going to have it this way first. Okay. Uh, no, a very simple one. I'm just going to return JS module. I'm just going to return a text. Okay, a string, by the way. Okay, get header. Okay, so but then take note here that this get header function could not still be seen or it's not yet accessible from any other file. Why? It is because I have not included the keyword export. So what I'm doing here now is I am now exporting the get header function so that it would be accessible to other files. I'm going to save this one. Then I'm going to import it in my index.js. So here, import, then it must be, since it is not a default export, so therefore I'm going to enclose it in a curly brace. Then I'm going to have it here, get header. And as you can see by default, okay, our IntelliSense, okay, has appended from dot slash utilities. Why? It is because we have here the file is we have utilities.js. Okay. Then how am I going to use get header? Okay, let us say I'm going to have it. I'm going to add event listener. Then once the DOM has been loaded, okay, so I'm going to use get header. But first, I'm going to get the header text. Okay, H1. It is actually an H1. So const header header text. So this header text is actually our H1. Maybe here. Okay, so next then is I'm going to have header dot inner text. Okay, I'm just going to use the inner text is equal to I'm going to use my get header. Get header. Okay, so that it is going to be displayed. Okay, so get header, then it is going to call get header, and it is going to return the string JS module. Okay, so I'm going to save. Oops, we have an error. 404. Okay, I think this one here. So you must have to include .js. So save it here now, JS module. So again, where does JS module string came from? It is actually came from utilities.js. Okay? Specifically from the function get header. Okay? So we have exported this function here and it is imported from this file. Okay? And how are we going to use that function? So whatever will be the name here, and by the way, we could not assign any name, any other name, because it is not a default export. So we're just going to have the default export later on. Okay? So we have it here, get header. Okay? So how are we going to create here an export? A default export. Let us say I'm going to have it on top. Actually, you can put it anywhere, but I'm just going to have it on top. So I'm going to have it const. Let us say add. Okay, so we are going to create here a function that is going to have x and y. It is going to receive x and y. Then we are going to return. Okay, as simple as this one. Return x plus y. Okay, and I'm going to make add. I'm going to create add as export default. Then I'm going to have add. Okay, so I have two functions here. One is a regular export, and the other one is an export default. So how am I going to import add? So from our index, now if ever I'm going to have it there, comma add, save. Okay, it is going to give us an error. Utilities.js does not provide an export name add. Okay, but take note here, we have an add function. Okay, but it doesn't recognize it as an ordinary export. It is because we have export, we have the default function keyword there. So therefore, we must have to separate it from the named functions, okay, or named exports. So save. So as you can see, the error has been removed. Okay, so how are we going to use that? Uh, let us say I'm just going to have add, then 3 comma 5. So it should return 8. So leave it there, 8. Okay. We're going to concatenate. Let us say so that I could use both of them. Uh, then I'm going to have also our get header. Okay, so I must have two results now coming from both of the functions. So we have JS modules and the value 8. So save it there, the title and the module, and and the value 8. And it is said we could write anything for the name of our export default. So for example here, okay, I'm going to have it first, anything. Okay, so since I used anything, so therefore I must have to have it here, anything. Although it doesn't make sense, but then I'm just going to show you the principle that have been discussed a while ago, that an export default function could be called or could be assigned with a name when we are going to import it. So still, we have the same result. So it is not the keyword anything. For example, I'm going to have it here, uh, another name. So if ever you have there another name, then we must have also use it here, another name. But still, another name is actually pointing to our default function. Save, still same result. Okay, so that's how are we going to export and import our uh, functions. Okay, so as we go along with this series, so there would be a lot of uh, import and export discussions. Okay, so I'm just going to have. Okay, so I'm going to have one another an example that would make a little sense. Okay, I have here. Let us say. Okay, so I have here a student's uh, list. Okay, list of students. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to display students in a table. Okay, but then I'm going to call a module from still from utilities.js. Actually, let us say I'm going to have creator.js so that I could show you that we could have create another module for this one, for this example here. Okay, but still, actually, you could combine them here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create another function. I'm just going to call it creator, or you could name it the way you want, .js. Okay, the purpose of creator.js uh, for my example is I'm going to create a table and return it to index.js. Okay, so take note, a while ago we have returned a number, we have returned a string. Okay, so in my creator, I'm going to return an element. Okay, the element would be a table. Okay, So const, uh, now let us say create table for my students. Create students table. Then I'm going to receive a parameter of list of students. Okay. So at the end, we're going to have it this way. So const, I'm going to create a table, okay, document that create element, then we're going to have a table that is going to display the students, okay, from the list. And at the end here, I'm going to return the table, okay. Then in between here would be the logic for creation of our table of students, okay. Uh, from the index, I have the ID, name, course, and age. Okay. So here, first is I'm going to create the header table header. Okay. So const thead is equal to document that create element. Then we have thead. Okay. Now the thead is we have the trth. Okay. So I'm just going to have const tr. Ano? Okay. Thead, I'm going to have it inner HTML is equal to. Okay, so I'm going to have string. Okay, so we have tr slash tr. Then I'm going to have th. Okay, first we have school ID slash th. ID, name, course, and age. Name, then course, and age. Okay, so after that, we are going to table dot append child. Then we're going to append our thead object. Okay, so by the way, I'm going to export. Okay, not default. Okay, so I'm going to export this one here. Save. So here, first I'm going to import create students table from creator.js. Then I'm going to create here a function const display students. Okay, by using now our students list. So create students table. So I'm going to have here. By the way, I'm going to display the table in our main div. Okay, so first I'm going to get const main div is equal to document that get element by ID. Then I'm going to have main dash div. Then main div dot append child. Okay, so what are we going to append here? We are going to append the table. Okay, so that we could append that, so we're going to use create students table, then the students. Students is actually our list here. Okay, take note. Create uh, create students table is going to return a table. So that's why we are appending it here. Okay, so let us try. Oops, wait. Oh, we have not called it yet, so I'm going to call it here display students. Save. Okay, so as you could see, we have here now the header. Okay, if we are going to go to our elements, we have here now our table with T head and our TRs. Okay, our headers. Okay, so going back, when the DOM is loaded, we call our display students. Then our display students is going to call create students table that has been exported from creator or imported from creator.js, as you can see it here. And we call the create students table. And as of now, it returns a table with a header. Okay, so next is we are going to create now our table body. Okay, so const tbody create element, then we have tbody. Okay, tbody, then TRs, different TRs. Okay, so first is we're going to have, okay, the students. Okay, we are going to loop or we are going to iterate through our students list. Students dot, okay, I'm just going to have first our for each. Oops. For each student. Okay, so for each of the student, we are going to create a TR. TR is equal to document dot create element. Then we're going to have table row. Okay, and in every row is we are going to have the TD for or the table data for the ID, name, course, and age. So I'm just going instead of using the objects, I'm just going to use the inner HTML. So we have here tr dot inner HTML is equal to the backtick. Okay, then we have TD and student dot I forgot it should be school ID, name, course, and age. So we have here student dot school ID, okay, then slash, no, slash TD, okay. So I'm just going to copy ID, name, course, and age. Name, course, and we have age. So that's the inner HTML for our TR, and then we are going to append. So tbody dot append child, we have our TR. Okay. Then it is going to iterate through our list. Then after that, we are going to append it into our table. Table dot append child. Then we have the body. Save. Okay, sweep it there. Okay, so if ever we're going to look at our main div, so we have there our table, then we have the t head, and we have our t body. And in our t body, so we have different TRs or rows, and each of the row is we have the values for our from our list. Okay, so again, um, okay, just a review here. First, we've created our header, then appended to our table. Then we have our, uh, we loop or we iterated from our list of students. Then in each student, we have created a table row and appended it to our tbody. And after the iteration, we have appended that body into our table and returned the whole element. okay, returned our table. And as you can see here, main div that append child, the output or the returned value for create students table is actually a table. Okay, so that is why, um, as you could see here now, this is our main code. Okay, we have here our index.js, but then to display students, we have only 2 lines here. Okay, why? Where is our code for creating the table? Is we have from our module, which is I call it creator.js. Okay, and by the way, you could still create another export statements here. Okay, and by the way, I'm just going to share with you. Okay, let us say here we keep on calling document.getElementById by ID, blah blah blah. So sometimes it's annoying actually to use document.getElement, document.createElement, and so on. So we could shorten that by creating a module. Okay, I'm going to export. Oops. Let's say document.getElementById. I'm just going to call it GID. Okay? Then what element or the ID of the element. Okay? So that I'm going to return here document dot get element by ID, then the ID. Okay? So, okay, I'm going to save it here. So instead, from my index, by the way, I'm going to import GID because I want the document that get element by ID, I want it to be shortened so that it would be easier for us, okay, to call it from this page here. Okay, so for example here, so we have document that get element by ID. So instead that I'm going to have that, I'm going to use GID. Also here, I'm going to use GID. Up, this must be capital. Okay, so save. By the way, save it here. Save all. Actually, we're going to have the same result. Okay, but instead of the document that get element by ID, so I have here now just GID. Or I'm going to, how about the create element? Okay, so we could export let us say, I'm just going to have it create, okay? And whatever element that we are going to create. Okay, so here, document dot create element, then whatever element are you going to create. Okay? And by the way, utilities and creator are both modules. Okay? So I could actually use utilities from creator. So I could import it here. So import, then create from utilities.js. Okay? So that instead that I'm going to have document that create element, blah, 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 blah. So I'm just going to have the create name. Okay. Save. I guess we have an error. Save it here. Does not provide an import GID. Export GID. Utilities. Oh, what happened is that I thought I have copied it, so I have now an error. So I'm going to have GID, then ID, then document dot get element by ID, and we have here our ID. So save. Oh, wait, we have an error here. It's not a function, so possible we have an error in our creator. Create. Oh, have it here. It should be get element by ID. Save. Okay, so have it there. So actually, we have the same result, but then as you can see, we have shortened, um, for example, from index instead of document that create or get element by ID. So we have here now, we have used only the exported name GID. Okay, and from creator, we have it is a module, but still we have imported another function which is exported from utilities. Okay, so we have here create. Okay, so as you can see from our main code, I'm just going to say this is our main code. So it is now much cleaner, okay, compared with if ever that all of these, okay, will be incorporated within our single file. So we have separated now our logic on separate files. Okay? So again, we are going to use some more of the modules as we are going to have our other topics into our in this series.